60 years ago, the most tragic chapter in Manchester United's history began. A season full of promise, potentially ending with a historic treble, was tragically cut short. A telegram sent to arrange the return of young talent, Duncan Edwards, arrived, but would never be answered. A haunting and sorrowful memory for the loyal fans of the Red Devils and football lovers around the world. The ill-fated BEA Flight 609 took the lives of what was considered the golden generation of English football at the time. So what really happened on that flight? Join us as we turn back the clock to February 6, 1958, the day one of the greatest tragedies in football history occurred. In 1958, Manchester United were reigning champions of the First Division, the predecessor of the Premier League, dominating English football under legendary manager Sir Matt Busby. His squad, known as the Busby Babes, was young, talented, and hungry for success. Sir Matt once declared, "I could sit back for 10 years and watch them play." Even legend Bobby Charlton later admitted, if the Busby Babes squad had remained intact, Manchester United might have stopped Real Madrid from winning 5 consecutive European Cups. Manchester United could have become England's greatest club of the 20th century, instead of making way for Tottenham or Liverpool. And if England had built their squad around the Busby Babes, they might have won the 1958 World Cup in Sweden, and perhaps the world might never have witnessed the rise of the king of football, Pelé. This speaks volumes about the brilliance of that generation of Red Devils. But then came a sudden tragedy, and all dreams of glory were brought to a halt. On the morning of February 6, 1958, after celebrating a hard-fought win over Red Star Belgrade in the European Cup quarterfinals, Sir Matt Busby and his players rushed to return to England for a weekend fixture against Birmingham City. The club had chartered BEA Flight 609 from British European Airways, operated by an airspeed ambassador, a twin-engine aircraft built for short and medium-haul flights. However, the aircraft type had known limitations in harsh weather conditions. On board were 44 people, including 6 crew members. Captain James Thane and co-pilot Kenneth Raymond were at the helm with 38 passengers. Among them, 17 Manchester United players, 4 club officials, several sports journalists, and other passengers. The flight didn't get off to a good start. It was delayed because right winger Johnny Berry had lost his passport. An hour later, the aircraft finally taxied to the runway and took off. Due to fuel limitations of the time, BEA 609 had to make a refueling stop at Munich-Riem Airport in Germany. 13:15, BEA 609 landed. The weather was brutal, heavy snowfall and a slippery runway. The scheduled refueling time was just 20 minutes, so passengers remained on board. To pass time, the players played cards, riding the high of their victory, unaware of the tragedy looming ahead. 14:31. After refueling, the aircraft attempted its first takeoff. But as it gained speed, the pilots noticed technical issues. The engine made strange noises, a phenomenon known as boost surging, caused by fuel surging the engine too quickly. The takeoff was aborted, and the throttle valves were checked and adjusted. 14:34. Second takeoff attempt. Once again, it failed. The aircraft shook violently, the engines roared unusually. Captain Thine aborted again. The passengers disembarked into the terminal to rest. At a cafe, the young players chatted about the upcoming match and their opponents. Goalkeeper Harry Gregg asked Bobby Charlton, "Hey Bobby, do you think we'll get home tonight?" Charlton shook his head. "I don't think so. At this rate, we'll probably have to stay in Munich tonight." Harry replied thoughtfully, "Maybe we'll need to take a train back. We've got to be ready for the Birmingham match. They're no easy team." But Bobby, brimming with confidence, responded, "They'll be beaten. We're Manchester United after all." During the conversation, 21-year-old Duncan Edwards, one of the finest English talents of his generation, sent a telegram back to Manchester. "All flights delayed. We'll return tomorrow." But time pressure mounted. Because of United's congested schedule, the crew decided to attempt a third takeoff, despite engineers' advice to rest the engines for at least 12 hours. This time, they even accepted to proceed with only one functioning engine. 2:56 p.m., 15 minutes after the passengers returned on board, the flight crew announced the third takeoff attempt. The players boarded, anxious and worried, though Matt Busby had tried to lift their spirits. Some players, including Eddie Coleman and Mark Jones, moved to the rear seats, believing it to be safer. 2:59 p.m., runway lights turned on after maintenance was completed. Everyone thought this would finally be a smooth takeoff, but the nightmare was just beginning. 3:02 p.m., takeoff commenced. The plane accelerated from 0 to 178 kilometers per hour, then reached 220 kilometers per hour, the minimum required for liftoff. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. Suddenly, the speed dropped rapidly, 207 kilometers per hour, then down to 190 kilometers per hour. Not enough to lift off. Captain Thane sensed resistance. Something was slowing the aircraft down. They decided to abort and make an emergency stop. Thane pulled the control column upright and applied full brakes. The plane shook violently, and fear spread among the passengers. Eddie Coleman, sensing imminent death, screamed, "We're going to die! We're going to die in Munich!" It was too late. The aircraft overran the runway, crashed through a fence, and slammed into a nearby house. It became a fireball, erupting into flames in the freezing afternoon. A nightmare unfolded. The deadliest disaster in football history. Blood stained the white snow. Fires raged. Bodies lay beside the wreckage. 20 people died on the spot. Captain Thane and goalkeeper Harry Gregg, both survivors, helped pull others to safety. Rescue vehicles arrived, and the injured were rushed to hospital. But the death toll rose to 23. Duncan Edwards among them, who passed away 15 days later in the hospital. The crash shocked the UK and the world. It happened too quickly. Fans couldn't believe it. Among the 23 victims were 8 first-team players of the golden generation: Roger Byrne, Jeff Bent, Eddie Coleman, Mark Jones, David Pegg, Tommy Taylor, Liam Whelan, Duncan Edwards. Other survivors were left permanently unable to play football. The severity of the incident triggered investigations by British, German, and UEFA authorities. One indirect cause widely reported in the media was United's participation in the European Cup. It all began in April 1955, when UEFA founded the European Cup, the forerunner of today's Champions League. In its first season, English champions Chelsea didn't enter, as the English FA dismissed the competition. A year later, when United became champions, Sir Matt Busby, determined to conquer Europe, negotiated their participation. Eventually, United were allowed to compete in the 1957-58 season, but with no privileges, no rescheduled matches, no special travel allowances. So after their quarterfinal in Belgrade, they had to return immediately for the weekend league game. They were forced to charter a plane, not the safest or most advanced, from British European Airways. But that was only the underlying cause. Authorities focused on the immediate trigger. Initially, Captain Thane, who survived, was blamed for attempting 3 takeoffs and continuing despite only 1 engine. Later, it was concluded that heavy snow at the end of the runway caused the aircraft to fail to reach takeoff speed. Responsibility partly lay with Munich Airport officials, but they denied blame and tried to prosecute Thane, arguing he didn't de-ice the wings. Eventually, after lengthy legal battles, British authorities ruled that the snowfall on the runway was the main cause. No one was held entirely responsible, and Thane was cleared of all charges. It seemed the Red Devils had fallen forever. But they rose again. Bobby Charlton, Harry Gregg, and Bill Folks, survivors, carried the club forward. With a new generation of young talents, Manchester United became European champions in 1968, exactly a decade later. That victory completed a dream once left unfinished in the snow of Munich. 65 years have passed, but the 1958 Munich disaster remains a sorrowful memory in the hearts of Minutians and football lovers worldwide. Every year, United still holds memorials to honor their greatest generation. Now, under the leadership of Erik ten Hag, the club is showing signs of revival after years of disappointment. With current form, Red Devils fans can believe once more that dreams are returning to the Theatre of Dreams.